Have you ever lost somebody close to you or just somebody that you knew that you spent some time with? And as you go through that first year without them, it can be a brutal time. I call that the year of firsts. The first birthday without them, the first Thanksgiving, the first Christmas, all of the firsts that come with that first year. It can be a brutal time. It can be a lot of a roller coaster of emotions. But every now and then, if you're lucky, you'll get a little reminder that they're still around. And maybe that reminder will come in the form of a smell. Hi, my name is K.A Bloch, and I am the award winning poet and author of 4 books that consist of poetry and prose. My channel here is called The Practical Poet. Pardon me, I'm so sorry. And I also have a blog of the same name at thepracticalpoet.com. And each week on my blog and on this channel, I feature a different poem from one of my 4 books, or maybe even some new material. And the poem that I'm talking about today comes from my 3rd book called Gather Seeds of Hope. And this is a poem called The Scent of You. And I was reminded of this poem recently as I was talking with a woman who has become a bit of a new friend. And as we were kind of sitting at the bar together, she was telling me that her birthday was coming up and it was going to be a big birthday. And it was going to be the first birthday without her mom, as her mom had passed away within the last year. And I said, "Oh, you're going through the year of firsts." And I said, "It's always tough, and I gave her some words of wisdom that it does get easier. And I know from experience, as I lost my mom in 2016, and I went through that year first with both her and my dad, who passed in 1989. So I'm well aware of that year of firsts. And it can definitely be a tough time. As I was talking to her, I thought about this poem and I gave her, just a little bit of encouragement that, hey, just keep an open ear and open, eyes. Just open up your mind and your heart to the fact that, there may be signs that she's still around. And I know some people are going to say that that's hogwash, and some people are going to, I have friends that are atheists and, they would say that, there's always a logical explanation for what we're hearing. But I choose to believe, and I have a lot of poems on my channel and on my blog that talk about my belief in the afterlife and things that I've experienced. I'm pretty fortunate, I think, because I have received many signs from parents and loved ones that they're still around. And in the prose that precedes this poem in the book, I tell the story that I'm going to relay in just a few minutes about a unique experience that I had with my mom shortly after she passed away. So I'll get into that in just a moment. But just a little bit more about the different signs that we receive. I'm very open to what people call the angel numbers. And those are the repeating numbers, the 1111, 1212, 222, 555. I do stay away from 666. But aside from that, I see those numbers all the time. And not, it's not like when I'm looking at the clock and it's 11:09 and I'm like, oh, come on, come on, come on. It's going to be 11:11 soon. No, it happens just when I happen to just glance up and I'll see that, the number is 11:11, or maybe at the store, my total rings up to be 11:11 or 12:12 or one of those repeating numbers. And I always just give a little nod, or I say a little thank you to, my angels, my spirit guides, those that I think are with me and that have my back. And so angel numbers are one of the ways that you can get signs. I also look for butterflies and cardinals and the common things, the pennies that people find. And I say they're common. Maybe they're not so common to other people, but I'm very fortunate to be open to receiving those messages. And actually, on my poem, there's a poem called A Mother's Love that talks about, I relay the story of how butterflies and hummingbirds brought me some comfort during my mom's passing and then shortly after she passed away. So just some signs that I received that, everything was at peace. At least that's how I interpreted it. So again, the poem in the title is The Scent of You. So it kind of gives you an indication of the type of message that I receive from my mom. And there's different ways that we can receive messages. One is called, I probably won't say this right, but clairolfaction, and that is the smell. And then clair, just let me glance at my notes here. I wrote it down, clairvoyance, which many of us are familiar with, and that's where people can see things. I've never seen anything. I don't know what I would do if I happen to see an apparition or a spirit in front of me. I would hope that I'd be comforted, but I'm not sure. I might be a little bit freaked out. Maybe that's why they don't come to me. And then the other is clear, I can't read my own writing, clear audience hearing. And I did hear my mom's voice one time. The house was completely silent. I was gathering up my things to leave. There was not a TV on. The road outside my house was very quiet. And I heard plain as day, "Hi, Chris," in my mom's voice. And it was a couple months after she passed away. And I thought about that scene in Ghost, if you've ever saw that movie with Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze, where he is newly in the afterlife and he's kind of testing himself out by learning how to throw things and how to kick things and stuff. And I kind of thought, oh, mom's testing her voice today to see if it works. And it worked. I got the message. So um, again, going back to the story from the scent of you, this was a story that took place in December of 2016, and my mom passed away in November. So it was coming right up on Thanksgiving. So I had right away, right into the year of firsts. We had our first Thanksgiving without her, and then boom, right into Christmas, New Year's, and then my birthday is in January. So they all came rushing in very quickly, and you have to just kind of roll with the punches, I guess, when that those holidays stack up like that. But when we were gathering up my mom's things, as you often have to do when somebody passes away. By the way, there is a poem in the same book called Gone that talks about when somebody passes away very suddenly, and what do you do with all their things, right? We have to do something. And in the case of my mom, it wasn't sudden, so we had a little bit of time to prepare, but we did have to, divide up her things. And I ended up taking home with me a tall, probably about a 4.5, 5 foot jewelry box. And inside the jewelry box, we had a pink felt lining. And as I started opening up the jewelry box to fill it with my own things, every time I would open it, I would get a smell. And I couldn't distinguish what the smell was. It had a little bit of a rosy smell to it. It was definitely floral in nature, but I couldn't identify the floral and I couldn't identify the perfume. And my mom was never one to wear like Chanel number 5, or my sister always wears Clinique Happy. My mom didn't have a signature scent. She would just kind of wear, whatever she was feeling at the time. And she'd spray it all over her sweater before she left. So it kind of lingered on her sweater. And she always had necklaces on. She would wear like a stack of necklaces longer. And at the end of the night, she would take the necklaces off, place them in the jewelry box, and they would lay against that felt lining. I think over time and over years of doing that, the jewelry box kind of collected its own unique smell, which was like a commingling of all of the different scents that she used to spray on herself. So inadvertently, that commingling of all those different scents kind of became her signature scent. There was a tradition that my mom and I had taken on over the last 10 years or so. And that was um, in early December, we would go to a little village about 40 minutes away that has all kinds of cute little stores and shops. It's actually an old mansion that's converted into different shops and different rooms. And you just wander from room to room. And we would always go there every year. And sometimes other friends would join us, and sometimes it was just me and her. And we would usually get lunch and a glass of wine and do some Christmas shopping. And I always loved that tradition. So this year, the year of firsts, I was not going to go there. I was like, not this year. I'm not doing this Christmas shopping. I'm not going to this place without her. One day, it was in winter. It was very cold, dark. Looked like it was going to snow. The clouds were very heavy. There was not any flowers around. Obviously, I live in the Midwest. It was December, and I happened to find myself about maybe a few miles away from this little village that we would always shop at. And I was in dangerously close territory. And I was still like, nope, not going there, not turning down this street. I'm not going shopping. As I stopped at a red light, suddenly my car filled up with just an overwhelming scent. I shouldn't say smell, that kind of sounds bad, but a scent. And I knew I had smelled it before. And it was a little bit floral in nature. And of course, I looked around. I had the windows up. I had the heat blasting. There wasn't not a flower in sight. And the light turned green. I started driving. And as I got closer to the street that I would normally have turned on, it was overwhelming. I almost had to roll the windows down. The scent was that strong. And as I got a little closer, all of a sudden it dawned on me what that smell was. Pardon me, I am so sorry. It's wintertime. I got that nagging cough going on. And I identified what the smell was. It was the jewelry box smell. I knew right away that my mom was with me on that day. And, as I did end up turning down that street, and as I got a little closer and I found a parking spot, the smell kind of ramped up again. And then it started to dissipate a little bit as I started to gather my things up. And I knew right then at that moment, I was not shopping alone that year. I knew that, my mom was with me. And so I've continued to go to that same village every year pretty much. And I know that I'm not shopping alone. I know that she's with me. So I thought that was an interesting story. And that led to the creation of this poem that I'm going to read in just a moment. And by the way, I did gift my book to this friend that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the one that was kind of suffering with her birthday coming up and her mom not being there. And I hope that it brought her some comfort, as I hope that it does for you as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting into the video poetry reading of The Scent of You. Before I do that, quick sip of tea. We have a day similar to kind of the day I just described in December, but it's not December anymore, but it's still very cloudy out. It's windy, it's chilly, it's winter in the Midwest. So a nice sip of warm tea. Hopefully that's going to soothe my voice because this coughing is getting annoying. I'm going to go ahead and put on my glasses, and I'm going to get into the video poetry reading of The Scent of You. This is not a very long poem at all. This is actually one of my shorter ones. So I hope you will stick with me through the entire video poetry reading. If you choose not to, the full poem is available in written form on my blog, along with the backstory that tells how my car filled up with the scent of my mom. And I hope that if you are in need of some comfort, or that you know somebody that's kind of going through that tough time, or that you're first, that maybe you'll share it with them as I did with my new friend, and see if it brings them some comfort. So again, The Scent of You. I smell it in an instant when I walk into a room. Immediately, I am transfixed by the smell of your perfume. I know you're not the wearer, but I embrace the familiar scent, and I'm filled up with emotion and tears I can't prevent. I smell it when I hold your coat or take out your favorite sweater. I smell it when I open a drawer, your perfume on a letter. Some days these little reminders show up everywhere, little signs from heaven that let me know you're near. Other times I go for months without smelling the scent, and I can't help but miss you and wonder where you went. Then suddenly, when I'm busy or driving in my car, I'll catch the aroma, and I know you're not too far. So again, not a very long poem, but The Scent of You. And that is true. There are times when I'll go for a very long time without any kind of a sign. And you kind of wonder, did I dream it? Did I imagine that my loved one was near? And then all of a sudden you'll get a sign. And it's such a comforting feeling. And like I mentioned, I do have other poems on my blog and on this video channel that talk about, the different spiritual encounters that have kind of helped bring me some comfort. Definitely believe. And, just as kind of a closing note, smell is the strongest scent that we possess as humans. And it can often invoke powerful emotions, or, bring back memories, as it did when I smelled the perfume that filled up my car. I was instantly reminded of not instantly, it took me a minute, but eventually I was reminded of the jewelry box smell, and I kind of knew what that meant. And um, that's called olfactory memory, when you smell something and then it triggers a memory, kind of like when you hear something, you hear a song on the radio and it triggers a song and it brings you back. Smell can do the same thing. And I can smell a cigar and I'll think about my grandpa's house, and I'll picture the cigar smoke above his head when he was sitting in his recliner chair. And some people are grossed out by cigarette smell and pipe smells, and for me it's a very comforting smell for some reason. I grew up around smokers and cigar smokers and stuff, and it just brings me a little bit of comfort. My friend Linda, she's still around, she has not passed on, thankfully, but she always wears the same perfume. And every now and then I'll be at a store or something, and I'll catch a whiff of it from another woman that's wearing that same scent, and I'll whip my head around expecting to see my friend Linda, and it's not her. But it always reminds me of her, and I'll text her. I'll be like, "Hey, I smelled you today," and we kind of have a little laugh over it, because it sounds a little bit weird to say that to somebody, but it's just those little reminders that we get. You often hear, when somebody's trying to sell a home, and this may just be an old wives' tale, but they say bake some cookies or something, because that smell, that warm baking in the oven, just kind of triggers those memories that we have. And I'm grateful that we have those memories, whether it be a song that triggers a memory, or a smell that triggers a memory, or something that we hear that just brings us back. Our memory banks are so full and we're so busy and we can't remember everything. So we need these little nudges. We need these little reminders that take us back. We're in the middle of something. Like I was just in the middle of sitting at a red light driving my car, and all of a sudden I just got this overwhelming scent, and I wasn't thinking of my mom at that time. I mean, I kind of was because of the time of year and our tradition that wasn't going to happen that year, but I was kind of preoccupied, and all of a sudden, there's that scent saying, "Hey, I'm here. Don't forget about me. You're kind of busy right now, but I'm still around." And we need those little reminders, and I'm grateful for them. And I wonder if you have a similar experience, and I'd love to hear your comments. If you want to drop me a note or something, or on my blog, you can comment on this poem, and tell me if you've ever experienced anything. I'd love to hear that. I'm very, very fascinated by that. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I thank you so much for joining me for this poetry reading of The Scent of You from my third book, Gather Seeds of Hope. The poem and a link to this book, which, by the way, is the only one of my books that's available in a nice hardcover, can be found at my blog at thepracticalpoet.com/blog or /books for a link to the book. And I hope that you'll join me each week for a different video poetry reading. If you like what you heard, please click the like and subscribe button, and we'll chat real soon. So have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.